Bugatti's desire to build up its lineup of models is arguably one of the worst-kept secrets in the auto industry. The French automaker wants to diversify its lineup with a model that will offer a completely different experience from the Chiron and all its derivatives. An SUV has been talked about so many times already, but it seems that Bugatti isn't leaning in that direction, or at least that's what it's claiming. Company boss Stefan Winkelmann recently talked to Car Magazine and emphatically shot down rumors that Bugatti is considering developing an SUV. As far as what Bugatti is considering, let's just say that even if it isn't an SUV, it might actually be one anyway. Bugatti operates on a different level than most automakers. That's just an established fact. Apparently, it also operates under different definitions of certain body types that are prevalent in the business these days. See, when Bugatti CEO revealed to Car Magazine that the company will not develop an SUV, he didn't leave much room for interpretation. Sure, there are plans to expand the automaker's lineup beyond the Chiron hypercar, but an SUV is out of the question. Or at least that's what Bugatti's big boss wants us to believe. So, as it turns out, the model that Bugatti is considering is a high-riding four-door vehicle. Think about that for a second. What does a high-riding four-door vehicle sound like? It sounds like an SUV, or at the very least a crossover, doesn't it? Car Magazine has a more straight-to-the-point explanation for the model in question, describing it as a sporty crossover with a higher seating position than a saloon, with a body lower and less boxy than a traditional SUV. Okay, so we can establish that Bugatti doesn't want to build a traditional SUV. We can throw out models like the BMW X7 and the Mercedes GLS as possible comparisons, because they're more or less considered to be traditional-looking SUVs. You can even look at models like the Porsche Cayenne Turbo, Bentley Bentayga, and the Rolls-Royce Cullinan as unrelated models to what Bugatti's cooking up. If anything, the only SUV that could potentially fit Bugatti's description of one is the Lamborghini Urus. There's no mistaking that the Urus is an SUV. Even Lamborghini calls it one, and everybody who has seen it in person will tell you the same thing. But its design, particularly its supercar-like profile, does stretch our imagination on what a super luxury high-performance SUV could look like. Perhaps Bugatti's design team is looking into building something similar, because the Urus does look like a high-riding supercar. There's also a scenario where Bugatti is just trying to throw us off the scent, especially now that rumors of a possible SUV are all over the place. Maybe Bugatti wants to divert attention away from that rumor by shutting it down completely. After all, the kinds of descriptions we've received from these sources are descriptions that you can use for an SUV. 4 doors? Check. High riding? Yep. Even the phrase sporty crossover is a giveaway. Maybe Bugatti just doesn't want to be bothered about it, so it's shutting down any whispers about a possible SUV, even if it's building one. Stranger things have happened in this business, that's for sure. On the flip side, there's also a world where Bugatti is actually planning something completely out of left field. After all, high-riding vehicles don't necessarily have to be crossovers or SUVs. The Mercedes E-Class All-Terrain, Volkswagen Golf All-Track, and Audi All-Road are all good examples of that. Then there's the possibility of a coupe crossover, and the BMW X6 comes to mind immediately, with its coupe-like sloping roofline mixed in with the beefiness of an SUV. I'm not saying that Bugatti's plans for this new model will follow the parameters of these examples, but given the information we know at this point, there's a world of possibilities of what the French luxury car brand is planning for. Whatever it is, you can be sure that everyone's going to talk about it once more concrete information becomes available. In the meantime, Winkelmann added that this new model will be the greatest, most expensive car in its sector, and that seems to indicate that the segment it's going to occupy already exists. This is another thing worth speculating on. Just don't expect this model to be as expensive or as extreme as the Chiron. Winkelmann also made made that clear to Car Magazine, saying that the automaker is planning to price this model at around $1 million. The goal at the moment is to have the model ready for prime time by 2023, and if everything works out according to plan, Bugatti wants an annual production of 800 units. That last point is particularly interesting. The prospective volume of this new Bugatti is a lot higher than the Chiron, which Bugatti is limiting to around 500 units throughout its production run. It's the same strategy it employed with the Veyron, where 500 units were built over a 10-year production run. But this new model will have a production volume of 800 units per year. That's an interesting strategy on its own, especially coming from an automaker that's known far and wide for touting exclusivity above all else. As for the engine, it's a bit uncertain at the moment if Bugatti's not an SUV model will sport the legendary 8-liter W16 that fits like a custom-made glove into the Chiron, and it's basically down to the price. See, the Chiron starts at $3 million, and much of that is because of the engine, so a price tag that's 3 times smaller will likely come with a few downsides. Or will it? While the Chiron's quad-turbo 8-liter W16 is indeed monumentally impressive, it really isn't a long-term solution. Big cities like Paris and London are already implementing new rules to help curb emissions, and for now, it looks like electric vehicle technology will become the new standard, even among high-end brands like Bugatti. As such, Winkelmann appears to favor electricity over gasoline for the brand's future, but that preference goes far deeper than simply conforming to regulation. It could also speak to Bugatti's core values if implemented correctly. I would see us doing a battery electric vehicle. There, the balance between performance and comfort is much more important, and it's about daily usability, Winkelmann told Bloomberg. Thanks to features like silent running, less drivetrain vibration, instant torque, and breathtaking acceleration, all-electric vehicles play quite nicely in the high-end car segment. An all-electric Bugatti will still likely offer some very impressive performance specs. We'd argue that around 600 to 800 horsepower feel about right for such a vehicle, with a 0 to 60 mph time somewhere in the low 3-second range. That's quick, no doubt about it, but it's still slower than the 1500 horsepower Chiron, which can hit the same benchmark in just 2.5 seconds. Should an all-electric Bugatti SUV ever hit the market, it would have the performance needed to compete against nameplates like the Lamborghini Urus and Bentley Bentayga. But then again, Tesla and more recently Porsche have already shown the world that battery-powered cars don't need to be boring, so it kind of makes sense for a Bugatti, doesn't it? But what do you think? Would a high-performance crossover be a right fit for the brand that's synonymous with extreme speed? And would an electric version of it spoil all the fun? Let us know in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to stay up to date with everything we make here at topspeed.com. Thanks for watching.